Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Chagigah, and we are on Daf Yud Chet, Amud Aleph, 10 lines down from the top line, and we are amidst a question, a discussion of Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish, when it says by Chag HaAsif, the Isur Melacha of working. Rabbi Yochanan asked Resh Lakish based on his drasha. He said, well, when it says you can't work on Chag HaAsif, it can't mean that it is the Yom Tov itself that's Chag HaAsif, that you are actually gathering your bundles on Yom Tov. That's Melacha on Yom Tov. Melacha is Asur. It also can't mean that it is on Chol HaMoed. So it must be a reference to working after. So it means it can't be after the Chag completely. So therefore, says Rabbi Yochanan, you see the Chag HaAsif is just Kufat HaShana. It is a reference to the season of gathering your produce in, but not that on the Chag you are oseth. And hence, Rabbi Yochanan, of course, his point was that, therefore you see that Chag HaKatzir also does not mean that on the Chag itself you are kotzer, you are harvesting. But says the Gemara, you see from the debate, the back and forth, that when Rabbi Yochanan says, well, it can't be that Chag HaAsif is a reference to Chol HaMoed, because Chol HaMoed is asur to do melacha, and Resh Lakish is sitting there listening, says yes, nodding his head. You see that both of them agree that Chol HaMoed is asur b'melacha. So if Chol HaMoed is asur b'melacha, what in the world is the source of Chol HaMoed not being allowed to work? Now I understand Shabbat is asur to work, because that's what Shabbat means. Shabbat v'inafash. I understand that Yamim Tovim are asurim b'melacha, because that also is called Shabbat. Shabbatoni lachem, for Yom Kippurim, and the others, Machorat HaShabbat. But Chol HaMoed, you want to eat and drink and have a good time with family, but why is it Asur b'melacha? How do you know that? And the Tosafot over here, the long Tosafot Cholo Shel Moed, Asur b'asiyat melacha, the Tosafot understand that the Isur of melacha on Yom Tov is in its core an Isur de Rabbanan. And what we're going to see in the Gemara over here, multiple different sources, they are all what we call asmachta be'alma. They are supports for the rabbinic prohibition, but really the core of the Isur Melacha on Chol HaMoed is just the Rabbanan. Many Rishonim disagree with the assertion of the Tosafot, and they actually understand that working on Chol HaMoed is a Isur D'Oraita. Really, the source of it is, as we mentioned, multiple different drashot right now we're going to have. The source of it is D'Oraita. And as the Gemara is going to say, Chachamim were given the power by the Torah to give us direction of which ones should be asur, which ones should not. In other words, it's an open-ended isur deoraita, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given authority to the Betin, to the Sanhedrin, to create an assertion of, okay, this is asur, this is mutar, as we are going to discuss. So the Gemara now starts, it says, Michlal, the Tarvayu Sevir Alehu, the Chulo Shel Moed, Asur Basiyat Melacha. Both of them hold that Chol HaMoed, both Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish, hold that Chol HaMoed is asur to do melacha. So says the Gemara, how do you know? Menah HaNemiri, the Tanu Rabbanan, we learned, Et Chag HaMatzot Tishmor Shiv'at Yamim, keep Chag HaMatzot Shiv'at Yamim, and based on the understanding of the Geonim, over here is because he already has said, Ushmartem et hamatzot. So why do you have to say, again, keep the matzot, et Chag HaMatzot tishmor shiv'at yamim? So, for instance, Rabbeinu Hananel understands that the superfluous pasuk over here is coming to teach you that it is not just the day of Yom Tov in the beginning of Pesach and the day of Yom Tov at the end of Pesach, which is Asur B'Asiyat Melacha, but rather the entirety of the Chag is Asur B'Asiyat Melacha. Rashi understands that the diuk is not from Ushmartem et Chag HaMatzot, but rather from the Shivat Yamim. It compares all of the days together. It says, keep Chag HaMatzot how many days? The Shemirah is going to be 7 days. So it compares all of the 7 days of Chag HaMatzot together. And just like the beginning and the end are Asur B'Melacha, the middle days also will be Asurim B'Melacha. But be that as it may, from this pasuk of Et Chag HaMatzot Tishmor Shivat Yamim, Limed Al Cholo Shel Moed, it teaches on Chol HaMoed that will be Asur B'Asiyat Melacha. Divrei Rabbi Yoshia. Rabbi Yonatan Omer, Rabbi Yonatan says, Eino tzarich, you don't need this drasha. It's more simple. Kal v'chomer, it is a kal v'chomer. Umar Rishon v'Shvi'i she'en kedusha lifneim v'la'acharein. Just like Rishon and Shvi'i, that are asur to do melachat, like the pasuk says that, and yet before and after them is not asur to work. They're not sandwiched with the days of isur asiyat melacha, and yet they're asur b'asiyat melacha. Yet those days that are not sandwiched with Shabbat, they are considered asur b'asiyat melacha. Cholo shel moed sheyesh kedusha lifnehen v'acharehen. Chol HaMoed is sandwiched by 2 Yom Tovs. There's kedusha before them. There is kedusha after them. They are defined by a beginning point of kedusha and an ending point of kedusha, and Torah is signing these days as the days of holiness. So therefore, they should be asur, because now they're sandwiched with kedusha. They're even a higher level. Gemara says, wait a second, that's not true. Eino din sheyeh asur b'asiyat melacha. Gemara says, no. Sheshet yemei bereshit yochichu. Well, every single day of the week is also sandwiched. The 6 days of the week are sandwiched from Shabbat before them and the Shabbat after them. And the Shabbat after Friday. So you have a week that's sandwiched by 2 Kedushas, and yet the 6 days of the week are not Asur B'Asiyat Melacha. So that Kal V'Chomer, the Gemara rejects. Sheyesh kedusha lifnehen ule'acharehen, that there is kedusha before them and after them, and yet mutarin ba'asiyat melacha, they are permitted to do melacha. So Ma'al Sheshet, the Gemara goes on, says, wait a second, but that's not a good kasha, because Ma'al Sheshet yemeh bereshit she'en bahem korban. Says, you bring a proof to reject my proof by saying the 6 days of the week. But 6 days of the week is clearly not a part of any kedusha, because do you have korban musaf on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? No, regular weekday. And Chol HaMoed, do you have korban musaf every day? Of course you do. So you see, by the extra korban that you bring, that the day, the korbanot of the day, always reflect the kedusha of that day. So when you have a korban musaf, it shows that the day is a holy day. And every single day of Chol HaMoed, you have korban musaf. So says the Gemara, Tomar becholo shel moed sheyesh bo korban musaf. Every day of Chol HaMoed has korban musaf. So therefore, I'm back to my proof in the beginning. You see that the days of Chol HaMoed are holy. That much we do see. Because every day of Chol HaMoed you have to bring korban musaf. And therefore, once you see that the Torah has sanctified these days, and you have a Yom Tov before and a Yom Tov after, they're sandwiched, so now I could use my Kal Vachomer. Now we understand better what the Gemara logic was before. The Gemara says, now Shabbat, before this complete, mundane, regular Chol, and yet, the Yom Tov Rishon of Pesach, Yom Tov Acharon Shel Pesach, they're not sandwiched with days of Kedusha, and yet they're Asur B'Melacha. The Chol HaMoed, first of all, is sanctified by the means of, that you bring Korban Musaf, and also it's sandwiched with a Yom Tov in the beginning and a Yom Tov at the end. So it's logical to say that you should be Asur B'Asiyat Melacha, you should be prohibited from doing Melacha on Chol HaMoed. Now, the Gemara is still not done. Says the Gemara, Rosh Chodesh Yochiach, you think that Korban Musaf equals being prohibited from work? You know what other day we bring Korban Musaf? And it's mutar to work? Rosh Chodesh. Every Rosh Chodesh we have Korban Musaf. Is it asur to work on Rosh Chodesh? No. So you see, Korban Musaf is not related necessarily, is not connected necessarily with Isur Asiyat Melacha, prohibition of work. Says the Gemara, Rosh Chodesh Yochiach sheyesh bo Korban Musaf u'mutar b'asiyat Melacha. The Gemara says, no. Rosh Chodesh also is not a good comparison. Male Rosh Chodesh en karui mikra kodesh. You think I say it because it is Korban Musaf only? I didn't tell you the whole thing, says the Gemara. The days that are Mikra Kodesh in Tanakh, whenever it says something is Mikra Kodesh, it means Asiyat Melacha. You have to call this day holy. How do you call it holy? By not working. And Rosh Chodesh is not one of the list of the days that is called Mikra Kodesh. It only has Korban Musaf, so it has extra Kedusha. But it's not a level of Kedusha that would prohibit you from working. Because it's not Mikra Kodesh. Mikra Kodesh, you have to call this day holy day. You know what days are called Mikra Kodesh? The Yamim Tovim and Chodosh El Moed. The Chol HaMoed is called Mikra Kodesh. Says the Gemara, Male Rosh Chodesh she'en karui Mikra Kodesh, tomar b'Chodosh El Moed she'karui Mikra Kodesh. And says the Gemara, this is the conclusion of the Gemara, Ho'il ve'karui mikra kodesh, dinhu she'asur b'asiyat melacha. Because the days of Chol HaMoed are called mikra kodesh, it is the halacha, it's the din, that it should be asur b'asiyat melacha. As again, as mentioned before, Chol HaMoed is more moed than it is chol. Unfortunately, in previous decades, many people thought Chol HaMoed means this chol. Now, Baruch Hashem, you see more and more people ask questions, what's mutar, what's asur? Really, all of the melachot are asur on Chol HaMoed, unless otherwise known or proven. And the source of it, says the Gemara, is because it is called Mikra Kodesh. So that's one discussion in the Gemara so far. The Gemara now goes through a different source. Tanya Idach.
This seems like it's derisa up to this point.
Again, as we mentioned, the Rishonim understand, based on the simple understanding of the Gemara, that the Melacha of Chol HaMoed is the Oraita. The Tosafot right over here disagrees with that. It says, even though that the Gemara seems to indicate that this is drashot from the Psukim and so on, these are only finding an asmachta from the Psukim, but really the core concept of prohibition of work on Chol HaMoed is the Rabbanan. So it's really machloket Rishonim. But the majority, many Rishonim disagree with this Tosafot. And they say, no, it is from the Torah. So Tanya Idach, another Braita discussing a source for the prohibition of work on Chol HaMoed. Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu, limed al chulo shel moed, she'asur ba'asiyat melacha. The Pasuk says, Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu, b'yom harishon mikra kodesh, Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu, and then right away afterwards it says, Shiv'at yamim takrivu ishel Hashem. You see the juxtaposition of the two psukim. In the first pasuk it says, B'yom harishon mikra kodesh, Kol melechet avodah lo ta'asu. The first day is Yom Tov and you can't work, and immediately says, Shiv'at yamim takrivu ishel Hashem. 7 days you bring korban to Hashem. So the Gemara says, the comparison, the hekesh, that the pasuk is makish, it compares the Shiv'at yamim, the 7 days, to Bayom Harishon Mikra Kodesh, Kol Melechet Avodah Lo Ta'asu. So you see, the pasuk is telling you that a direct hint that Shivat Yamim also are like the first day as far as the melacha is concerned. Rabbi Akiva Omer Enot Tzarich. Rabbi Akiva says the same pattern. Rabbi Akiva says you don't need that. It's more simple. Hareu Omer, because the pasuk says Ele Moadei Hashem Mikrae Kodesh Asher Tikreu Otam BeMoadam. These are Moadei Hashem that are Mikrae Kodesh Lakriv Ishe Olah LaHashem. And then says the Gemara Bamei HaKatuv Medaber. When it says Ele Moadei Hashem Mikrae Kodesh, it already said to me before the days of Yom Tov. So if it is, when it says Ele Moadei Hashem, what exactly is the reference when it says is Mikrae Kodesh, which means Mikrae Kodesh you can't work. So says Rabbi Akiva, let's understand the pasuk. The pasuk tells me Ele Moadei Hashem Mikrae Kodesh Asher Tikreu Otam BeMoadam. These are the days that are called Mikrae Kodesh. Mikrae Kodesh means what?
No.
You can't work. So says Rabbi Akiva, what exactly is this pasuk referring to? Let's go through a process of illumination. In Barishon, if it's referring to the first day of Yom Tov, so thereby it says already, Hare Kvar Ne'emar Shabbaton. It says Shabbat. It says the first day of Pesach is Shabbaton. So that means it's like Shabbat. It's Asur B'asiyat Melacha. That we know already. In B'Shvi'i, if it's talking about the seventh day, Hare Kvar Ne'emar Shabbaton. By there also it says Shabbaton. So why in the world do you have to say Ele Moadei Hashem Mikrae Kodesh Asher Tikreu Otam BeMoadam? You told me already it's Asur. In other words, in a world that Rishon Shvi would be Asur and all of the Cholosh Shel Moed would be Mutar, there would be absolutely no reason, says Rabbi Akiva, to go back and add another pasuk to the Humash and say, Ele Moadei Hashem Mikrae Kodesh Asher Tikreu. You told me already Shabbaton on the first day. When you discussed the Korban, you told me Shabbaton on the last day. Call it a day. So must be if there's a third pasuk that says Ele Moadei Hashem Mikrae Kodesh in reference with Pesach, it means I'm teaching you that the days in the middle between the first Yom Tov and the last Yom Tov also are Mikrae Kodesh, and Mikrae Kodesh means you can't work. So that's Rabbi Akiva. To teach us that it's asur to work. So that's the second round. We have 4 Tanaim so far, 4 different ways of knowing that Chol HaMoed is asur b'asiyat melacha. Now another third round. The last narrow line. Tanya Idach, another Braita says, Sheshet Yamim tochal matzot ubayom hashvi'i atzeret laHashem. It compares, in one pasuk, a comparison between the 6 middle days and Yom HaShavi'i. And we know that Sheshet Yamim Tochal Matzot does not mean that the last day you could eat chametz. So why do you have to say Sheshet Yamim Tochal Matzot ubayom HaShavi'i aseret laHashem? It clearly is separating them to compare the 6 first days and the last day for some purpose. It can't be the purpose of Achilat Matzah, because Shvi also you're eating Matzah. So therefore, says the Gemara, says the Gemara, Ubayom HaShvi'i aseret laHashem, ma Shvi'i asur, af sheshet yamim atzurin. Just like the 7th day is atzur, atzur is closed up, you can't do melacha. The 6 previous days also, which is the days of Chol HaMoed, is asurin, closed up, that you cannot work. So says the Gemara, it's the first day also, but here the pasuk is comparing those days with the last day. We know the first day already. It's called Shabbat, right?
Why say it again?
Because exactly, because you're comparing the 6 days with the 7th day to teach me that you can't work on the 6 days. Right? So says the Gemara, I don't understand, says the Gemara. Wait a second. If you're comparing them with Shabbat, with real Chol HaMoed, with real Yom Tov, I would learn from it what? That just like Yom Tov is asur to do any melacha, Chol HaMoed also should be like mamash, a 7-day Yom Tov. Can you imagine people dread 3-day Yom Tov? Now imagine an 8-day Yom Tov. Amazing, right? People will commit suicide. So that would be, it should be asur for the whole thing. Says the Gemara. Af sheshet yamim asurin. The Gemara says, Ima shviya asur bechol melacha af sheshet yamim asurin bechol melacha. Let us suggest that the sheshet yamim also should be asur in every melacha that you have. Says the Gemara. No, Talmud lomar ubayom hashvi'i aseret. Why does it say ubayom hashvi'i aseret? The clear separation says yom hashvi'i asur bechol melacha ve'en sheshet yamim asurin bechol melacha. The differentiation at the end of ubayom hashvi'i is coming to teach you that it's correct that we're comparing them for Isur Melacha, but there is a difference in level of what is considered Asur B'Melacha. Bayom HaShvi'ah is Asur B'Kol Melacha. It's completely closed up. But the 6 days prior are Asurin B'Melacha, but you have a certain leeway. Now, what does that mean exactly? These are the key Gemaras. This is the important line. Halo mesarana katuv el chachamim. Here we learn, the Gemara says, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has handed this over, the key of this, to Chachamim. Lomar lecha, to teach us, to tell us, Ize yom asur, ve'ize yom mutar. What day is asur, what day is mutar? Ezu melacha asura, ve'izu melacha muteret. To determine which one of them should be mutar and which one of them should be asur, that already is a job of Betira, job of Chachamim. In other words, you have a very interesting, according to the other Rishonim, according to the Tosafot, this punchline of the Gemara is coming to tell you exactly what the Tosafot said, which the whole thing is the Rabbanan. According to the rest of the Rishonim, who disagree with the Tosafot's assertion, they would say this is a very interesting phenomenon that the Torah gives an Isur, but recognizes that based on the generation, based on what the Sanhedrin, the Betin see, it has to be given to the hands of Chachamim to assert what exactly should be Asur and when. Okay, so last part of the Mishnah, we learned something very interesting. Last part of the Mishnah we learned, Umutarin behesped v'ta'anit shelo lekayem et divrei ha'omrin aseret achar haShabbat. The last case of the Mishnah was speaking about a situation that Shavuot fell to be on Shabbat. And when Shavuot is on Shabbat, Yom Tavoach, which means the makeover day, that you actually do the Shechita, would be on Sunday. So you are basically celebrating Shavuot on Sunday. And says the Mishnah, on that day, even though that you are now making over for the Korbanot, you're bringing Korbanot of Shavuot, of Yom Tov, on this Sunday, still, and it should be really, logically speaking, it should be Asur to have eulogy, should be Asur to fast, a communal fast, should be Asur to do any of those things, because you bring Korbanot of the Chag Shavuot. It's Isru Chag. But yet the Mishnah says, Mutarin me, Hesped v'ta'anit v'asyacha. It's mutar to do all of those things, right? So says the Mishnah, why is it mutar behesped v'ta'anit? Shelo lekayem b'divrei ha'omrim aseret achar Shabbat. As we mentioned when we learned the Mishnah, the Stukim, they always celebrated Shavuot on Sunday, because they understood that it says mi machorat Shabbat tisperu 50 yom, that it's a reference to Sunday, mi machorat Shabbat. Ad mi machorat Shabbat Shvi'it means you are counting from Sunday and you end up to Sunday, and therefore Shavuot always would fall on Sunday. Now Chazal said no. When it says mi machorat Shabbat means the first day of Pesach, which is also called Shabbaton. So Bachar Shabbat means the day after first day of Pesach, whatever day is first day of Pesach. The day after will be start of Korban HaOmer and Sfirat HaOmer, and then we will land wherever it will land. So in order to disprove the case of tzdukim, when the korbanot will be brought on Sunday, they would say it's mutar if you want to do hesped, chazaku baruch, if you want to do ta'anit, chazaku baruch, tava ala bracha, because we want to show that the halacha is not like the tzdukim. This was a tug of war within tzdukim, and we don't realize oftentimes how strong they could have been. You learn in other Gemarot that they had the power of even appointing kohanim gedolim. Many kohanim gedolim unfortunately became tzdukim. And this actually trickled down throughout the generations. Really, the time of the Gemara was tzdukim, then became the Karaites. The Karaim, they were even, in many senses, worse than the tzdukim, because they looked down at the Chachamim. They were usually, they were more machmir than the Chachamim. For instance, Lo t'baru esh b'chol moshvotechem b'yom HaShabbat. No fire, no heat, no hot food, nothing. One of the reasons that we call the Sfaradim, we call the food of Shabbat morning, what? Chamin. Why do you call it Chamin? Because we go after, we go, aside from that, we go out of our way to make sure it's hot. Leotzi miliban shel tzdukim. Can I have a cold cut sandwich? No, you have to have Chamin. Because we want to be leotzi miliban shel tzdukim. On Yom Kippur, there was the ta'anu et nafshotechem. They would put a rock at the back and go up and down the mountain. And they would look at the Chacham and say, you guys are Reformed Jews. You got to go to a very hot place, right? It was a very difficult war. To the degree that Rambam writes in his letters to his Talmid, he says, if it wasn't because of me and Rab Sadia Gaon, who also Rab Sadia Gaon was given basically a status of Rosh Galuta. He was given a governmental power to some extent. And of course Rambam, who became the close confidant and the private doctor of the king of Egypt, King Salah ad-Din, he also used his government given power to establish a certain level of keeping of the mitzvot for mikvaot, for other things that he writes. And he says, if it wasn't because me and him, the Karaites would take over. That's how strong they were. So the Hotzi Miliban Tzdukim was something of a battle, because it was a tug of war. They were very strong, and they had to be done. So says the Gemara, Va'itmar Ma'aseh Umet Alexa Belud. Right? Alexa died on Yom Tov. That means, it doesn't mean that you can't use, it does mean actually you can't use Alexa. But Alexa was the name of a Chacham, right? Alexa died in city of Lod. Because he was a Chacham, all of the Klal Yisrael, all of the Jewish community got together, to eulogize him. Rabbi Tarfon stopped them from doing it. Because he was Yom Tov Shel Aseret. So says the Gemara, Yom Tov Sal Kadatach, you think he was really Yom Tov? On Yom Tov, people would gather together to come to do a eulogy. Everybody knows you cannot do Hesped on Yom Tov. It's like Shabbat. So says the Gemara, Ibe Yom Tov, Mika'atu, would they even come on Yom Tov? Ela, says the Gemara, no, it was not Yom Tov. Ela ema mi pereshe Yom Tevoach haya. It was Yom Tevoach. It was the makeover day, and therefore they thought that they could do it. And Rabbi Tarfon told them, you can't do it. Because the makeover day of Shavuot, and on makeover day of Shavuot, you cannot do Hesped. So what does that sound like saying? On a makeover day, you cannot do Hesped v'tani. We just said, the Mishnah, that on the makeover day you could, because Lo'otzi miliban shel tzdukim. And here you have a Maaseh Shaya, a Maaseh Rav, that Rabbi Tarfon stopped the people from being able to eulogize this Chacham called Alexa.
Isn't it only on Sunday? I thought it was only on Sunday, yeah.
Oh, so says the Gemara, Lo kasha. Kan b'yom tov shcha liyot achar HaShabbat? Kan b'yom tov shcha liyot b'Shabbat. In other words, you thought that when we say we do it Lo'otzi miliban shel tzdukim means any Yom Tavoach, any makeover day, we do it because we want to show that tzdukim are wrong. But says the Gemara, B'yom tov shchal liyot b'Shabbat, sheyom tevoach achar Shabbat, says Rashi, mutar behesped. When the Yom Tevoach falls to be on Sunday, achar Shabbat, then it's mutar, because lotzi miliban shel sdukim. Because the Sunday is the key, not Yom Tevoach. So whenever Yom Tevoach falls to be on Sunday, that's when it's asur. מפרע אומרים עצרת אחר השבת, והי דאלכסה בלוד יום טוב שלך להיות בכל הוא. This eulogy for Alexa was, on a regular day, the en Yom Tevoach b'Yom Rishon. That the Yom Tevoach was not on a Yom Rishon, and therefore they thought it should be mutar, and he said you can't do it. So that's really...
But it was a Yom Tevoach?
It was Yom Tevoach.
Can it work out like that? That you had the day pushed off?
Yeah, it could be.
And that it's not on the Sunday?
If they had a communal problem not to be able to bring it, he said we make it up for 7 days. You can make up, right? But again, the Yom Tevoach, it will be any time that you could make it up, it will be a Yom Tevoach. So it says, we mentioned before that it's not 1 day. We had a Hava Amina like that, which is 7 days. So that concludes really our Mishnah and our Gemara over here. Now the next Mishnah starts, the first line of Yudchet Amud Bet, really is stepping into a completely different territory, which is going to actually consume the next 9 blots of Chagigah throughout the end of our Masechta and Seder Moed, which is a concept of Tuvah Ta'ara. Now this is a very unique opportunity, because normally you don't have a sugya, you don't have a whole Gemara about Tumah Ta'ara in that way. And here we have, of course, at the end of Perek, we'll see why we're going through all of these loops, because of the halachot that are specifically there for the Yom Tov and the korbanot that are brought on Yom Tov. But Tumah Ta'ara as a whole is a fascinating concept. And just like the Chafetz Chaim writes in the beginning of his work, he writes that learning Kodshim v'Ta'arot is very important, because nowadays we don't have, unfortunately, the Beit HaMikdash. And the way we could complete that part of our neshama is by unshalema parim sfatenu, that we learn about them. We learn the basic things of Tumah Ta'ara, and these few pages of Gemara really focus on some basic concepts of Tumah Ta'ara, which are extremely important for us to know, important for understanding many areas of the Torah, Chumash, Rashi, Mishnayot, and so on. So we're just going to have a little bit of Hakdama, a little preface to this before we start the Mishnah, and that is there are several different types of levels of Tum'ah. There is Avi Avot Tum'ah. A human corpse is considered Avi Avot Tum'ah. Then you have something that's next level, you have Ava Tum'ah. And Ava Tum'ah is any source of Tum'ah that the source is generated from itself. That's what's called Ava Tum'ah. Zav is an Ava Tum'ah. Zava, Nida, Mesorah. All of those are level of Ava Tum'ah. Then things that come in contact with a Tum'ah that's generated in that way would be Rishon LeTum'ah. And it goes down the intensity of Tum'ah. It could become Sheni LeTum'ah. Some things could become Shlishi LeTum'ah, and some things could become Revi'i LeTum'ah. But there is no level after Revi'i LeTum'ah. It goes up to Kodshim, which could become Revi'i LeTum'ah, and that's the parameters of Tum'ah that we have. You have Ava Tum'ah, Avi Avot Tum'ah, those 1/2, and then you have Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, Revi'i. So you really have 6 levels 6 levels, but really there are 5. As we go into Be'ezrat Hashem discuss, there's a fascinating thing of how it comes to Netilat Yadayim. Many things that we do on a daily basis will be actually dependent on this Mishnah. It's a very exciting thing. We'll start with Be'ezrat Hashem in the days to come.